Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And welcome to another edition of the sub segment, Fictional Women Around the World. And I'm just going to say I've been putting this one off.
Oh.
Because it's huge.
Oh.
But we're finally doing an episode on Storm from the X-Men.
Woo!
Now, that being said, this character does have an enormous history, and not just a fictional one, but one that reflects societal touchstones at the time she was written, like the U.S. Civil Rights Movement, a lot of social movements. So I think we should do a full-length episode on her and all the stuff around her. But for now, we're doing a condensed segment.
All right.
And
let's see.
Don't test me, Samantha. I do love Storm. She was one of my favorite X-Men for sure. But on top of that, standard Marvel disclaimer. Oh my gosh. Reboots, retcons, so many conflicting narratives, multiverses. There is no way we could possibly cover them all here, or even in a full-length episode, to be honest.
Are we going to talk about her accent changes in the actual show?
No. I don't talk much about the movies in here, honestly.
Oh, okay.
But yes, that is something we could revisit. I will say this. We're largely focusing on her earlier stories.
Okay.
And if you didn't know, I'm always curious if someone will be like, oh, I've never heard of X-Men. X-Men is a huge property with over 12 movies, I think. And now Disney is involved, so who knows what's going to happen. A ton of comics, of which Storm appeared in over 7,500 of them. She's in games, she's the products, etc. She is a popular character. She's in all kinds of things. With all that said, Storm is one of the most powerful mutants in the X-Men universe, with the ability to control the weather. There are actually really fun limitations she has that I love. It's like about atmospheric pressure and stuff.
Oh.
So nerdy. She was first introduced as a character in 1975's giant-sized X-Men #1 comic, developed by writers and artists Lynn Wein and Dave Cockrum. This comic was looking to revamp the X-Men franchise and renew interest. And one way they were going about doing that was introducing new mutants. And a lot of them were multinational and multicultural. You can imagine some of them were better representations than others. But Storm was one. Later, Chris Claremont took over writing of this character and gets a lot of credit for her earlier storylines. So, for the origin story, Storm was born Aurora Monroe in New York. Her mother was a Kenyan woman descended from royalty, while her father was an African-American photographer. As a baby, she and her parents moved to Cairo, and at the age of 5, her parents died after a plane crashed into their home. I don't remember that. The crash buried her and her dead parents alive. Her alive parents dead, and left her with claustrophobia that she would continue to struggle with for the rest of her life. It took her 3 days to dig herself out. So pretty grim origin story. From there, she survived by pickpocketing on the streets of Cairo until she eventually traveled to Kenya and discovered her ability to control the weather. Some of this is kind of, like I said, a lot's happening in these comics, so some of it, the timeline is a little messy. She then started to use her powers to do things like water the crops for the locals. So she was really respected. Eventually, word got out to Professor X, leader of the X-Men, and he recruited her to join. After she tried to pickpocket him, he was like, think I know where you should go. And this is where she learned she's descended from a line of African women who were mutants. Just to break down her powers a bit, because they are pretty cool, Storm cannot create situations that do not exist on Earth. If she's upset, she can accidentally manifest a storm, so her emotional and physical well-being play a role in her abilities. And in some instances, she can control the air in the human body or the pressure in the human ear. She's also connected to the earth and can occasionally feel its pain. On top of that, she's really skilled.
Sucks.
I know, right?
That sucks.
I know.
Okay, keep going. All right.
Yes. No, I had the same reaction. She is also very skilled in combat, weaponry, and piloting. Honestly, if I listed all of her skills, it would be forever. But she's all around a good fighter. You want her on your team. And yes, condensing here. Okay. At one point, she lost her powers. At one point, she was married to T'Challa, aka Black Panther. It didn't end well. She became a leader of the X-Men of the team. And Wolverine. No, it wasn't Wolverine. Wolverine did push back against her at first. And then Cyclops came in and was like, I feel like I should be leader, but she won the battle between them. And ultimately, people were like, yes, she's the leader. We accept you. She was possessed by Dracula. Yes.
What?
Yes. They go places, Samantha.
Okay.
Because of her strength, she attracted a lot of enemies who wanted to use her abilities. She was de-aged at one point and teamed up with Gambit, who you probably know is like the New Orleans gambler mutant. She led rescue efforts of mutant children. She learned she could become an elemental being. She had a Thor-like hammer at one point. And yes, there's a multiverse too. So there's lots of different storms. But she's, I think what they call her Class 6, Omega 6. She's like one of the most powerful mutants. And this leadership part was really big. She lost her powers thanks in part to a dude who she was romantically interested in, I might add. They had kind of a strange relationship. Returned to Africa to sort some things out within her, and then returned to challenge Cyclops to a duel, as I said, over who should lead the X-Men. And she won without her powers. This was so new at the time to see a Black woman leading in mainstream media like this, and she did it even without her abilities. Whew. This character is often praised as the one that got the groundwork, the backstory, and led to her becoming a leader. So people really put in the work instead of like shoehorning in a token, like it was like really, she had a really fascinating story and she had these really interesting powers and people really liked her. She also became friends with Jean Grey, who helped her acclimate to Western culture and overcome or at least manage her claustrophobia. I don't know if this is true, but one thing I read said she lost her virginity to Black Panther at the age of 12.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true, but I did read that somewhere. No, I don't like this either. After that, she killed a man after an attempted sexual assault. In 1983, her look changed drastically with a white mohawk and a lot of leather. I laughed because apparently the artist was doing a joking riff on Mr. T, who I realize a lot of people listening might not know. And it stuck.
Really?
I think maybe a lot of people listening don't know.
Oh, no.
I could be wrong. Right in.
Oh, no.
This was for the Uncanny X-Men. I will say she was not immune to the sexy costume treatment. I can't think of a single woman comic book character who was, off the top of my head. I'm sure someone, but a lot of hers weren't terrible. Some of them were, but a lot of them were okay. But yeah, she was just this hugely impactful character, truly iconic, and one of the first Black women leaders in this space. And she is really popular to this day, ranks as one of the most popular X-Men. She's just cool. And her powers are cool. She's a good leader with a good story. Please write in if there's any storyline or thoughts you have about this character that you think we should come back to, because I do want to do a whole episode on her. You can email us at hello@stuffmonevertoldyou.com. You can find us on Blue Sky at Mom Stuff Podcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff Mom Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have a TeePublic store and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff Mom Never Told You is a production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite shows.